At dawn, in a small interrogation room in Wichita, Kansas, a 59-year-old man sat across from a detective. He had murdered 10 people and stayed uncaught for 31 years. He was not afraid. He was not ashamed. He was hurt. And the thing he kept circling back to was not the families he had destroyed. It was that the police had lied to him.
Landwehr and Morton want to talk about murder. Rader, however, wants to talk about the newspaper ad that was his downfall.
He had asked them a question, and they had answered him with a lie. A small, simple lie, printed where he would be sure to see it. He believed it, and it was the reason he was now sitting in this room.
I need to ask, sure you like? How can you like? Because I was trying to catch you.
For 31 years, the world told one story about this man, that he was a criminal genius, that he was driven by something dark and uncontrollable, a force he gave a name to, Factor X, a demon in the driver's seat that made him kill. This film is going to take both of those ideas apart, in his own words, on his own timeline. And I want you to hold two questions while we do it. If the demon was real, if something he could not control truly held a knife, then where did it go for the 13 years he chose not to kill? And if he really was a genius, then why was he caught within days of the one moment his pride made him talk?
Say who you are. You killed him.
Dennis Rader was born in Pittsburgh, Kansas in 1945 and grew up in Wichita. And by every account, including his own, his early life was ordinary. There was no abuse, no broken home, nothing that marked him. In his own words, he came from a good family.
My dad was sort of my hero. He was a really good male model. He took us fishing, taught us how to hunt. They were both good characters.
Hold on to that because it matters. There is no tragic origin story here to explain him away. No childhood that picked up the knife for him. What there is instead is a life he built with enormous care. A life that, from the outside, looked like the picture of a respectable man. He served in the Air Force. He married a woman named Paula, and together they raised 2 children. He earned a degree in the administration of justice. He became the president of his church council. He led a local Cub Scout pack. For years, he installed home security alarms, and later he became the compliance officer for the suburb of Park City, where his neighbors did not see a pillar of the community at all. They saw a petty tyrant who policed them over the smallest things.
When he came over to their house, we have one report where he was measuring the length of grass in the front yard and writing citations because of that.
With a ruler?
Yeah.
Hold that ruler in your mind, because it looks like a joke. And it is not. It is the same impulse as everything else he ever did. A man with a bottomless need to control other people, expressing that need in whatever form the law would allow. He did not have 2 settings, one for the killer and one for the citizen. He had only one setting: control. He even had a word for the way he kept those lives apart. He called it a cube, an object he could turn at will, showing the world one face, while the others stayed hidden.
It was the compartmentalization of me, and that has been my biggest, or I could flip back and forth. I'm not proud of that. It's just this escape mechanism, defense mechanism.
The closer you stood to Dennis Rader, the safer you felt, and the less you saw. His neighbors waved at him. His church handed in the keys. His scouts learned to tie knots from his hands. And the person who stood closest of all was his own daughter, Carrie.
I was like, well, my dad loves me. And he goes, your dad was BTK every day of your life, and every memory of your life is a lie.
If you go looking through his past for the thing that made him, you mostly come up empty, and he knew that. So he reached again and again for an excuse. Accidents and injuries no one could ever verify. Anything that might place the blame somewhere other than on himself.
I actually think I'm maybe possessed with demons. I was dropped on my head when I was a kid.
But there was one early sign, and it was honest, and he described it himself without a flicker of shame. As a young man, he tortured and killed animals.
I did start to abuse farm cats. I built a box and I cut out the top of it just for a cat head.
Let his calm, almost bored delivery sit. The flatness is the point, and it did not stay there. It escalated. He began to prowl, watching women through their windows, learning their routines, breaking into homes not for anything valuable, but to steal women's underwear. And he did not think of himself as a sick man. He thought of himself as a hunter. In late 1973, he lost his job at the Cessna plant, and the rehearsal he had been running in his head for years finally became real. He gave the urge a name, the name he would hide behind for the rest of his life. Factor X.
The old me started whatever it was, Factor X, sexual predator. The volcano was the building of all those years.
A volcano cannot watch a house and choose the family inside it. A volcano cannot wait 13 years for a free afternoon. So before you decide what was driving him, look at what the excuse actually did. He did not call it murder.
You call these projects, were these sexual fantasies also?
Potential hits. That, in my world, is what I call them. All projects, hits.
His first victims were 4 members of one family, and he chose them deliberately. He had been watching the house and the family inside it. On the morning of January 15th, 1974, he walked up to the back door, cut the phone line. Listen to how ordinary he makes it sound, like a man describing a chore.
When they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family. And I came through the back door, cut the phone lines, waited at the back door. Pretty soon the door opened and I was in.
9-year-old Joey opened the door to let the dog out, and Rader pushed his way in with a pistol. And here is the cruelest part, the part that is pure Dennis Rader. He did not storm in screaming. He told them a calm, reasonable lie, one designed to keep them cooperative. He said he was a wanted man who only needed a car, some money, and food. He made them lie down. He moved all 4 of them into a bedroom and bound their hands and feet. He let them believe that if they did exactly as he said, they would live. They believed him. And then he decided they had seen his face.
They already could ID me and made a decision to go ahead and put him down, I guess, or strangle him.
All right, what did you do to Joseph Otero? Sr.?
Joseph Otero?
Yeah,
Okay.
Joseph Otero Sr., Mr. Otero, the father.
Put a plastic bag over his head and then some cords and tightened it.
Joseph tore a hole in plastic, fighting to breathe, so Rader covered his head a second time. He strangled Julie, the mother, until she went limp. He strangled 11-year-old Josephine until she went limp. He put a bag over 9-year-old Joey. He believed all 4 of them were dying. And then Julie came back, bound, barely conscious. The one thing the mother did was beg him to spare her son. He took the bag off the boy, and then he went back to her.
Mrs. Otero woke back up and, she was pretty upset at what's going on. So I came back and at that point in time strangled her for a death strangle at that time.
With your hands or what?
No, with a cord.
Then he went back and finished the father. He carried 9-year-old Joey into another bedroom, put a bag over the boy's head, and laid a cloth underneath it so the child could not tear a hole the way his father had, and he suffocated him. That left one. 11-year-old Josephine had woken up, and in his own words, he tells the court what he did with her.
Took her to the basement and eventually hung her.
hung her in the basement?
Yes, sir.
Did you do anything else at that time?
Yes, I had some sexual fantasies. But that was after she was hung.
Sit with what you just heard. He hanged an 11-year-old girl, and then he stayed because her death gave him pleasure. He says it in the same flat voice he uses for everything. The voice of a man describing paperwork.
When you use the term fantasy, is this something you were doing for your personal pleasure?
Sexual fantasy, sir.
4 people died that morning so that one man could live out a fantasy. For most killers, getting away with it is the whole point. For Dennis Rader, getting the credit was the point. And when the police questioned innocent men for the Otero murders, he could not stand it. So he hid a letter inside a book in the downtown library just to set the record straight.
This letter is very clear to tell us, you have the wrong people. You need to stop looking at them. You need to come back and focus your attention on me. I am the important one.
In that same letter, he gave himself a brand built out of the 3 things he did to people.
The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them.
BTK. He wanted his name in the newspaper, the same way the killers he studied had their names in the newspaper. Remember that, because it is the thread that will eventually hang him. 3 months later, he stalked 21-year-old Kathryn Bright. He broke in through the back door and waited inside for her to come home. But Kathryn did not come home alone. Her brother Kevin was with her. Rader used the same lie, made the 2 of them tie each other up, and then tried to strangle them one at a time. Kevin fought back, so Rader shot him twice in the head. Then he turned back to Kathryn.
The strangulation wasn't working on her, and I used a knife on her.
You say you used a knife on her.
Yes.
What did you do with the knife?
I stabbed her. She said either stabbed 2 or 3 times, either here or here. Maybe 2 back here and 1 here, or maybe just 2 times back here.
You were pointing to your lower back and your...
Yeah, underneath the ribs.
Kathryn died of those wounds. Her brother Kevin somehow made it out the front door alive and ran for help. The only person who ever fought Dennis Rader and lived. And Rader explained why.
If I had brought my stuff and used my stuff, Kevin would probably be dead today. I'm not bragging on that, it's just a matter of fact.
By now, he was hunting with a method. He cased homes in advance. He carried what he called his hit kit, a bundle of cord and tape and plastic bags.
Dylan's was a potential target. It was called Project Green, I think. I had project numbers assigned to it.
On this day, the house he had chosen turned out to be empty, so he improvised. He stopped a young boy on the street, posed as a private detective, and used the boy. Inside was Shirley Vian. He forced his way in at gunpoint and told her he had a sexual problem and was going to tie her up. The children panicked, so he locked them in the bathroom, gave them toys and blankets to keep them quiet, and shoved a bed against the door. And in his own flat voice, this is what he did.
Tied one of the bathroom doors shut so they couldn't open it, and then I proceeded to tie her up, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
Her children were behind that door the whole time, listening.
Well, the kids were really banging on the door, hollering and screaming, and then the telephone rang, and they had talked about earlier that the neighbor was going to check on them, so I cleaned everything up real quick like and got out of there.
25-year-old Nancy Fox. He studied like cray. He checked her mailbox to learn her name. He found out where she worked. He sized her up over several days, because the more he knew about her, he said, the more comfortable he felt.
At first, she was spotted, and then I did a little homework. I dropped by once to check the mailbox to see what her name was, found out where she worked.
On the night of December 8th, he cut her phone line, broke in, and waited for her in the kitchen. When she came home, he handcuffed her, and then, in his flat voice, he describes the rest.
I took the belt and then strangled her with a belt at that time. After I strangled her with the belt, I took the belt off and retied that with pantyhose real tight, removed the handcuffs, and tied those with pantyhose, and at that time masturbated her.
And here, for the sake of accuracy, one thing should be clear. He did not rape her. What he wanted was the binding, the killing, and the staging of the body afterward. And then he did the thing that defines him more than any other single act. The next morning, with her body still inside that house, he picked up a payphone.
Yes, you will find a homicide at 43 South Pershing, Nancy Fox. I'm sorry, sir, I can't understand you. What is your address? 843 South Pershing. That is correct.
In February of 1978, he wrote a 4-page letter to a Wichita television station. He wanted credit, and he was keeping count.
BTK began today's letter with a question. How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?
In his 4-page letter to the news station, he lists 7 of his victims, 6 of whom are named. Victim number 5, however, is not.
We were confident that number 5 was Kathy.
There was no guilt in that letter, no remorse. He was not confessing. He was complaining that he had killed 7 people and still was not famous enough. And the one victim he would not name was the one whose brother had survived. The one attack with a living witness who had seen his face. And then he asked the television station to give him a name worthy of that list. He wanted to be a legend. He was a coward who needed the world to watch. Remember the rule. The closer you stood to him, the less you saw. Marine Hedge had waved at him across their yards for years. She lived 6 doors down. He even had a name for her murder. He called it, and the alibi he built for it tells you everything about how he used his respectable life as a weapon. That night, he was supposed to be on a Cub Scout campout where he was serving as a leader alongside his own son.
I did this on a scout thing. It's a good cover for a guy like me. You go out and camp out and slip away.
He slipped away in the dark, the cover he built to get there. He described himself.
On that particular date, I had another commitment, came back from that commitment, parked my car over at Woodlawn and 21st Street, at bowling alley there at that time. Before that, I dressed until I had some other clothes on. I changed clothes. I went to the bowling alley, went in there, the precincts of bowling, called a taxi. Had a taxi take me out to Park City. Had my kit with me as a bowling bag. I pretended that I was a little drunk. I just took some beer and forced it around my mouth, and the guy could probably smell the alcohol on me. I told him to let me out so I could get some fresh air. I brought my kit, and lo and behold, her car was there. I thought, gee, she's not supposed to be home. So I very carefully snuck into the house, kind of like a cat burglar. And after checking the house, she wasn't there. So about that time, the doors rattled. So I went back to one of the bedrooms and hid back there in one of the bedrooms. She came in with a male visitor. They were there for maybe an hour or so. But he left. I waited till wee hours in the morning. and then proceeded to sneak into her bedroom and flip the lights on what looked like, or I think the bathroom lights. I didn't want to flip her lights on, and she screamed, and I jumped on the bed and strangled her manually.
Did she know you?
Casually, we'd walk by and wave. She liked to work in her yard as well as I liked to work. It's just a neighborly type thing. It wasn't anything personal. I mean, just a neighbor.
And then he did the thing that proves the killing was never the end of it for him. He carried her body to his car and drove it to Christ Lutheran Church, the church that trusted him with a set of keys.
I took the car over to Christ Lutheran Church. Well, I took pictures of her in different forms of bondage.
Afterward, he drove her body out to the country and left her in a ditch. Then, before dawn, he changed back into his scout uniform and returned to the campsite as though he never left. The scouts, the church, every piece of the cover was built from the trust other people placed in him. That is not a demon. That is a man using his own good name as a mask. His ninth victim, a young mother. Her little boy was in the house. To get through her front door in the middle of the day, he put on a costume.
I walked from my car as a telephone repairman. As I walked there, I donned the telephone helmet. I had a briefcase. Went to one other address just to kind of size up the house. I asked her if I could come check her telephone lines inside.
Did she allow you in?
Yes, she did.
What happened then?
Went over and found out where the telephone was, simulated that I was checking the telephone. I had a make-believe instrument, and after she was looking away, I drew a pistol at her and asked her if she'd go back to the bedroom with me.
Asked her to go back to the bedroom with you after drawing a pistol on her?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
I told her, we went back to the bedroom, I told her I was going to have to tie her up. She was very upset.
She did not go quietly. She fought him.
And after I tied her hands, she broke that and we started fighting. And we fought quite a bit, back and forth.
All right, she was physically fighting you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What happened then?
Finally got the hand on her and got a nylon sock and started strangling her.
So you wrapped the stocking around her neck?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What happened then?
I finally gained on her and put her down, and I thought she was dead, but apparently she wasn't. But after she was down and not moving anymore, I rearranged her clothes a little bit and took some quick photos.
He went through her purse, took her car keys, and fled in her own car. He also took her driver's license. Vicki was still alive when she was found. She died soon after. His 10th and final murder was 62-year-old Dolores Davis. He watched her home for weeks, and just as he did with Maureen Hedge 6 years before, he hid this killing behind the most trusted version of himself. That night, he was on a winter campout with his scout troop. He pitched his tent, then told the others he needed to drive home for something he forgot. Instead, he changed out of his scout uniform into his dark clothes and went to her house. He could not find a quiet way in, so he made a choice.
It was very cold at night. Had reservations about going in. I had cased the place before, and I really couldn't figure out how to get in, and she was in the house, so I finally just selected a concrete block and threw it through the plate glass window on the east and came on in.
She came out of her bedroom thinking a car crashed into the house. What she found was a stranger and a familiar lie.
I used the roofs of being wanted. I was on the run. I needed food, car, warm up, and I asked her. I handcuffed her and kind of talked to her. Told her that I would like to get some food, get her keys to her car, and kind of rest assured, talk with her a little bit, and calmed her down a little bit.
What did you do then?
Strangled her
What did you strangle her with?
Pantyhose.
What happened then?
I kind of like Mrs. Hedge. I already figured out I had a plan on leaving, and put her in a blanket and drug her to the car, put her in the trunk of the car, and then I drove up northeast of Sedgwick County and dropped her off underneath the bridge.
After January of 1991, there was nothing. No more letters, no more bodies, no more BTK. For 13 years, the most feared man in Kansas simply went quiet. For 13 years, the most feared man in Kansas did not vanish. He stayed exactly where he was, living what looked like an ordinary life.
What were you doing in those years when nothing was really happening?
Well, I was a good father, husband, raised my kids, did a lot of things for them, did a lot of things for the community. I worked at church, worked at Scouts.
Okay.
But if I wasn't real busy, then I would go out on my prowling and look for my next victim.
4 months after he strangled Dolores Davis, the city of Park City made him its compliance officer and dog catcher, a job that gave him the legal right to walk onto a stranger's property. By the accounts of his neighbors, it was a kind of power he enjoyed. Residents who crossed him described being harassed over the smallest things. The need to control the people around him never went anywhere. He only found a way to do it in daylight and to call it a job.
Something drove me to do this. And normal people just don't do this. You can't stop it. I can't stop it. It's just, it controls me. It's like it's in the driver's seat.
So hold that against the calendar. If the urge truly could not be stopped, if it was a volcano that had to erupt, where did it go for 13 years?
Did you feel like you were in control of your urges then?
Yeah. I could always fantasize or look for more victims. That was part of the excitement, to be able to do the hunt.
Two different stories from the same man. One day, the urge controls him. The next, he is in control of it, hunting because it thrilled him. The truth is, the urge never went anywhere. He just fed it in private, with the rituals and trophies hidden in his own home. And we will see exactly what those were. For 13 years, the man who said he couldn't stop, stopped, and no one forced his hand, which means every killing before it was a choice made with a clear head by a man who could have walked away and chose to bind and torture and kill. And the real man had one flaw waiting to be triggered. By the early 2000s, the case was 30 years cold, and a whole generation in Wichita had never heard the name BTK. He read that same article, the one wondering whether the killer was even still alive. For most men, being presumed dead is the perfect escape. For this one, it was an insult. He could not let it stand.
This is a breaking news alert from Cake on your side.
Good evening, everyone. The serial killer who terrorized Wichita for years is causing new fears tonight.
Police now say it appears BTK is back in Wichita.
He came back for something he needed more than the killing, to be recognized as the man who did it, to outthink the people chasing him, and to feel a whole city speak his name again.
Why do you think you wanted this recognition?
Along my childhood, I've always felt like I was an underdog. And that somewhere along the lines of getting a high of recognition, I think it's like the movie stars and stage people, they see the picture in a newspaper or a story about them. I think they get a rush on that.
And for the next 11 months, he chased that feeling, leaving pieces of himself all over the city. The first letter went to the Eagle. Inside was a photocopy of a driver's license he took 18 years earlier from Vicki Wegerle, along with photographs only her killer could have taken. For 25 years, the city knew BTK by 7 murders from the 1970s. Now, he was claiming an 8th. For 18 years, Vicki Wegerle's own husband, Bill, lived under the suspicion that he killed her. That license, mailed in by a man hunting for applause, was what finally cleared him. Then he could not stop. He mailed a television station the proposed chapters of an autobiography, the BTK story. And in the same envelope, he sent a puzzle. The puzzle looked like a harmless word. Search. It was a confession in 3 parts. His method, his identity, his disguises. The first was his method, how he hunted. Prowl, cruise, follow, spot victim, fantasies, go for it. The stages of stalking a human being laid out like a checklist. The second was his identity, who he was and where. Wichita, his area code, 316, and his own street number, 6220. He buried his own location inside a puzzle he mailed to the police. The third was his disguises, how he got through the door. Realtor, insurance, serviceman, handyman, for sale, lost pet, and a fake ID, the lies he wore to win a stranger's trust. The same ones that worked on the people he killed. Letters turned into packages, and he grew more grotesque. In a park, he left a doll. Its hands and feet were bound. A plastic bag was tied over its head. Beside it, he set the stolen driver's license of Nancy Fox. He built a model of one of his victims. He thought it was funny. He hid his messages in cereal boxes because, as he put it, he was a serial killer. A serial killer. His own private joke. On the 8th of January, he left one in the bed of a stranger's pickup truck in a Home Depot parking lot. But the man whose truck it was thought someone had thrown trash in his pickup, and he threw the box away. Weeks later, he grew impatient. He mailed a postcard pointing police to a lonely road north of town, and there they found a second cereal box. Inside was a graphic, handwritten account of the Otero murders and a doll bound to a length of pipe, posed as the 11-year-old girl he hanged 3 decades earlier. There is no version of that object the world ever needed to see, but it tells you everything about the man who made it. He did not just kill her. He sat at a table and built a model of her death to be admired. But it was that same postcard that undid him. He could not stand that his first box was ignored. So he told them where to look. Had they checked the Home Depot parking lot? They had not. Now they did. They pulled the store's security footage from weeks earlier, identified the employee whose truck he used, and went to find him. They recovered the cereal box from his garbage. And inside was a question. Could he send them a computer disk, he asked, without it being traced back to him? Be honest, he wrote. They were about to be anything but. He asked them to be honest, so they lied. He even told them how to reply through the newspaper in a code he chose. So they did. The disk is safe, the ad told him. It cannot be traced. Rex, it will be okay. It was a lie, and he believed it because after 30 years of mocking these people, it had never once occurred to him that they could be smarter than he was. On the 16th of February, 2005, a local television station received his disc, and it took the police almost no time at all.
And the next thing we looked at was statistics, and it shows here that was last saved by Dennis. So somehow a Dennis who was affiliated with the church or the library was somehow involved with this document.
Stone jumps on the internet, searching for a Christ Lutheran church in Wichita.
And when we do that, we come up with their webpage that has a link to their people affiliated with the church. You click on that link and you go to here. And the one Dennis we found on there was President of Congregation Council was Dennis Rader.
The last known address was at 6220 Independence, which is in a city just north of Wichita here called Park City.
But a name was not proof, so they began to build it. They went back to the Home Depot security footage, and this time they were not looking for a box. They were looking for him. The camera caught a vehicle pulling into the lot that morning, a black Jeep Cherokee. They drove past Dennis Rader's house, and parked in the driveway was the same black Jeep. But there was one piece left. For 30 years, the police had held the killer's DNA, waiting for a man to match it to. Years earlier, his daughter had given a routine medical sample at her university clinic, and it was still on file. It was a partial match. It was him. It had always been him. The next morning, they were ready to finally catch BTK. For 30 years, BTK had always struck first. This time, the police did. After all these years, it was finally over. BTK was caught. Once they had him, they had everything he had hidden. His hit kit, the bag of cord and tape and gags he carried to his murders. His trophies, jewelry and clothing taken from the women he killed and kept for decades. His drawings, page after page of his victims bound and helpless, women and even children. But that's not all. There is even something darker. Over decades, alone, he took photographs of himself. He would set up a camera, dress in clothing taken from the women he had killed, put on a mask, and pose to relive his murders. And he did all of that for his own pleasure. On the 27th of June, 2005, Dennis Rader pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder. You have already heard how he described them. Flat, precise, without a flicker of grief. 2 months later came his sentencing, and before the families ever spoke, Dennis Rader was given his chance to address the court, to show remorse, to say something to the people whose lives he had destroyed. Instead, he pulled out a set of notes, and one by one, he began to talk about the people he had killed. And with every single one, he found a way to talk about himself.
She spent time at her grandparents' farm. Well, I did too, as a kid. I have many fond memories of that, and I took after her. She loved animals, and I worked as animal control, and I read somewhere she had her last Christmas with her family. And I did too. That was a wonderful time. I took it from her. She liked to write poetry. I liked to write poetry. She liked to draw. I liked to draw. He was just like me at one time, a boy and a dog.
At his sentencing, the families were given the chance to face him and speak. And in their statements, one of them said the thing the whole state had been thinking, directly to him.
If I were spiteful, I would remind you that it is only fitting that a twisted narcissistic psychopath obsessed with public attention will soon have his world reduced to an isolated, solitary existence in an 80-square-foot cell, doomed to languish away the rest of your miserable life alone. Your own arrogance and ego got you caught. That if you just kept your big mouth shut, you'd still be a free man today, able to eat pizza and walk your dog Dudley.
The court gave him 10 consecutive life sentences, 175 years before any possibility of parole. He would die in a cell, For 30 years, the world had tried to explain Dennis Rader with one of two stories: that he was a genius who outwitted the police, or a demon who could not control himself. We can finally put both to rest. He was no genius. He hid his own name and address inside a puzzle and mailed it to the police. He asked the people hunting him whether a disc could be traced and believed them when they lied. He was not caught by bad luck. He was caught because he could not stop performing. His need to be seen is the only reason he was ever found. And nothing was ever controlling him. He was in control the entire time. Once he was caught, he wanted us to believe a force he could not stop had been in the driver's seat. But a demon does not keep project lists. A demon does not stalk a family for weeks, cut the phone line, and wait. A demon does not pose for photographs alone on a timer. He could turn it on and off whenever he pleased. He strangled Dolores Davis in the dead of night, and then he drove back to a scout camp out and went to sleep next to his son as if nothing had happened. The psychologist hired by his own defense, Dr. Robert Mendoza, did not find a demon. He found a diagnosis: narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, a grandiose sense of self, a belief that he was special, a pathological need for attention, and a complete lack of empathy. Not possessed, not insane, a narcissist, a psychopath. Exactly what Jeff Davis had called him, to his face. So we are going to do the one thing he could never bear. We are going to forget him and remember them.
When you took away my mother, you took someone who meant a lot to a lot of people. My mother loved life, her friends, a good laugh, dancing with my dad, and she loved to help people. But most of all, she loved and lived for us, her family. I'm sure you saw that in her face as she fought to live. My mother against your gun. You are such a coward. Since they were children, my father loved my mother more than any kind of love you could ever comprehend. He adored her. My father was a hard-working man, and we always felt secure. The thing that everyone remembers of my father is that he demanded respect, but that he gave it in return. I'm sure you could feel his love for his family as you took away his last breath. You're such a coward. My sister Josie, you should not have the privilege of even saying her name. Such a sweet girl. It's amazing to me that you could be so cruel to a sweet, beautiful child. His name was Joey, not Junior. You took away the most lovable, fun, outgoing, friendly, and adorable little brother anyone could ever imagine. He could have done something big with his life, but you took care of that, didn't you? Just recently, I realized that I could not remember my mother's voice. It was a painful discovery. But as I put my thoughts on paper, it comes to me. I am my mother's voice, and I know we've been heard.
I'm here representing my late sister Kathy and my mother Dorothy. She fought, it's quoted as a Hellcat, and I'm so proud of her for that. And the loss of such a beautiful young lady of 21 for 31 years ago, and I think about her, and what she'd be doing nowadays, if she could have had a life. She lived on approximately 5 hours after that, and she received over 20 pints of blood before she lost her battle.
My mother, I haven't prepared for this statement, but I'd just like for him to suffer for the rest of his life.
And Nancy Fox is my sister. I cannot begin to explain to you. There are not words to make you understand what losing Nancy has meant to me and my family. I lost a friend, a confidant. My children will never have an aunt, and I'll never have another sister. Nancy's death is like a deep wound that will never, ever heal. As far as I'm concerned, Dennis Rader does not deserve to live. I want him to suffer as much as he made his victims suffer. But then, when I think about that, in his sick, perverted way, he'd probably find that as some kind of pleasure or reward. This man needs to be thrown in a deep, dark hole and left to rot. He should never, ever see the light of day. And I have some afterlife scenarios for him. On the day he dies, Nancy and all of his victims will be waiting with God and watching him as he burns in hell.
It's been almost 19 years now that my brother and I had the most important woman in our lives taken from us. My brother and I had to go through so many important moments in our lives without her. Every day is a struggle to get through without her. It's not fair that we had so little time with her. I only had 10 years with her. Brandon only had 2. It's not fair that my 4-year-old son has to ask why his Mima can't come home. He draws her pictures. We should be able to take these to her, but they just sit on the fridge. My mother begged for her life, yet he showed no remorse.
My name's Rod Hook, representing the family of Marine Hedge. I know in most of our minds, we can't imagine what our families went through. But I respectfully request that the court think of that when you provide Mr. Rader with the sentence he so deserves.
The last 5,326 days, I have wondered what it would be like to confront the walking cesspool that took my mother's precious life. Sitting here before us is a depraved predator, a rabid animal that has murdered people, poisoned countless lives, and terrorized this community for 30 years, all the while relishing every minute of it.
Subscribe to America's Most Evil for more documentaries on the most notorious serial killers and criminal cases in American history. This is one film in a monthly series on America's most notorious killers: Edmund Kemper, Richard Ramirez, the Zodiac Killer, H.H. Holmes, BTK, and many more to come. Find them in the playlist and subscribe for the next one.